What's up, Mortgage Coach community? I am sitting down with Todd Ballenger again. This is part of a regular series where we're not just bringing concepts around fiscal literacy. We're giving you strategies so that you can get more referrals from CPAs, financial planners, life insurance agents, financial advisors. So we're getting you smarter so that you can win their trust and respect. We're getting you more confident so that you'll feel confident calling them up. And then, of course, I'm always about like, hey, what's a fiscal literacy strategy that's going to help you be a better mortgage professional? So today we're going to talk about wealth and the house, safety, liquidity, and return. So I sort of know what that means, but let's bring on Todd Ballenger and let's really drill down on this, guys.
Yeah. Hey, good to be here, Dave. We'll have some fun with this, I hope. I'm going to put a little bit of kind of geeky professor hat on. We're going to talk a little bit about wealth and the house. And this is something that when we go into this, one of the things you get in our course is not only a deep dive on this, but you actually get these finished presentations. I'm going to show you some slides from one today. We've used these with financial advisors for events. We've used these for client appreciation events. We've used these with large financial service companies. We did a monthly at a big arena with a professional MBA team. It was a lot of fun. We'd have 200 people in there. We would go through this conversation. So I'm going to take you through some key slides, but a very important concept is safety, liquidity, and return. It's the three-legged stool of an investment. So Dave, what is something that you've invested in personally? Not a house, but something else.
So not real estate. I mean, stocks.
Okay. So take a stock. So what's a stock?
Nike.
Okay. So you buy a stock called Nike. Okay. Do you consider that stock to be safe?
Yes.
Okay. And do you consider that stock to be liquid?
Yes.
Okay. And do you consider that stock to be likely to provide you a positive rate of return?
Yes.
Okay. So your decision to buy that stock was based on three really important things. And if you look at most of the investments in your life, okay, they come down to this three-legged stool. How safe is it? How liquid is it? And what kind of return will it provide? Okay. Most people can kind of make that connection with a stock, right? Or a bond or a mutual fund or other things. If I said gold, like let's say you bought a bar of gold. Okay. Is it safe?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty safe, but it's different, right? Because somebody could steal it, more, from your home, and it's different. And how about liquidity?
Not by the way, not for my home, but
yeah, not from your home.
Yeah,
okay.
No, it's not as liquid.
That's right. It's not as easy to transfer and stuff like that. And how about return? Does it provide a return?
I mean, usually when you buy gold, it's just to have it until you need it. At least for me, I'm not.
Yeah, so it may not. And so you find that sometimes if you decided you were going to put money in your checking account, it's really safe and it's really liquid, but it provides a pretty lousy return, right?
Yep.
Now, if you decide to put money in Nike stock, it may provide a greater return for you, and it may be very liquid, but it's probably not as safe as your checking account, right? Nike could get probed for some big thing, and suddenly that shoots down. So when I started working with financial advisors, one of the things I learned is that the way they approach looking at this is there's a trade-off oftentimes between safety, liquidity, and return, but no one had ever looked at it from a standpoint of the house, right? So if I asked you, is your house safe?
Yes.
As an investment?
Yes.
Okay. Is it liquid?
So it's a little work.
Yeah.
I mean, relatively, but not compared to a stock.
And does it provide a good return?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to examine that. We're going to look at those three things from a perspective of the house and see how safe is it, how liquid is it, and what kind of return does it provide? And very importantly, we're going to compare those things, because what this allows you to do is have really cool conversations with your client. Like if you told me, Dave, you want to buy a house, what's the first question that you might ask that person? If you understand this model, it's, do you believe the house will appreciate? Because a lot of people don't understand that if your house does not appreciate, it doesn't provide any return. All right. And we're going to show you this in an example, but there's some real simple things here. One of the things we used to do, I'll bring up real
quick. I want to insert a thought before you share your screen and
Sure,
give us the lesson. So before you share your screen,
Okay. Here.
Uh, all right, cool. So I had on today's Mortgage Coach Tuesday interview, I had a mortgage professional out of Denver, Colorado, who, by the way, I should refer to you. Her name is Elizabeth Tura. And when I was asking her, what's your mortgage why? She said, to create opportunities in others' lives they don't see for themselves. She said, like, that's what I'm all about, is like to actually have a conversation with the family around the mortgage and for them to see opportunities they didn't see before. Like, that was her why. And I think you guys are all kind of seeing where this is going. Todd's giving you a compass and a tool that will help you have those conversations. Because even as Todd was talking to me, it made me think about those asset classes a little bit differently. So I want you to think of this as a compass. And remember, always the goal. Again, we're here to talk about certified liability advisor and really going to the next level at being more than a loan officer, being a certified liability advisor. But even if you're a loan officer, to be able to talk to a client and get them to see opportunities in their house, in their new home, and their refinance they didn't see before, guys, it's the ultimate competitive advantage. So anyways, keep it going. And by the way, I'll put a link to that interview down below. And remind me if I don't introduce you to Elizabeth, know that I will.
Sounds great. Yeah. I mean, you're spot on. People buy homes to build a family and a relationship and all those kind of things, but they buy houses because they think they're better off possibly than renting, right? Or living in their parents' basement. So once you move to the house mindset, and we've had that prior conversation, watch it if you have it on house versus home. Once you move to a conversation about house, you're now in the realm of wealth and finance. And what is the financial impact of owning this thing called a house? So I'm going to kind of jump in. I'm going to kick a couple slides here out that'll help you around the safety, liquidity, and return. One of the things we often do with clients, we would ask them a couple of questions, and there are a bunch of different questions you can ask. But the bottom line is the answer to all these questions is it depends. And knowing it depends on what is what really separates you as a liability advisor. Should I get a 15-year or 30-year mortgage? I can't answer that question because the answer is it depends. Now, I, as a professional, know what it depends on. And it's the next series of questions that are really, really critical. But let's look at safety, liquidity, and return. We could talk about cash flow and all this kind of stuff, but this is the three-legged stool. Take any investment you have, a car. How safe is it? Well, it's pretty safe as an investment, but what? It could get wrecked. It's liquid in that I could sell it, but it'd take time. I'd have to go list it or whatever. And you know what? The return is going to be absolutely lousy. So what is safety, liquidity, and return? Well, safety of your house, right? And first off, safety is the risk of loss. So from a financial planning perspective, anytime you have an investment, when you think about safety, it's the risk of loss of that money. What's interesting about a house is it is safe, but there are four primary threats you really have to be aware of. You can lose your house in a lawsuit. You could lose your house through foreclosure. You could lose wealth in your house through depreciation, or you could lose wealth through appreciation. So these are four different scenarios. Now, which one of those stands out to you initially, Dave? And you go kind of, what?
Well, I don't know. I'm not, none of them are surprising. I mean, I've been through your course, bro.
Oh yeah. Well,
yeah.
But a lot of people, they say, well, how do you lose wealth through appreciation? There are people that have highly appreciated homes, and that increases the cost of insurance, that increases the cost of taxation, and all of these other expenses that, even though the utility of the house doesn't change, that appreciation actually has an impact on their wealth. And there's strategies for that. We teach those strategies, but you have to be aware that safety, from a house standpoint, there are many different threats. And there's also some really cool strategies that you can do to protect someone. But if they've never thought of this before and you're having this conversation, you get a chance to talk about this, especially with advisors. How are you protecting this asset called a house? See, the house is the largest single asset on most people's balance sheets. It's also the largest single liability on most people's balance sheets. So liquidity is really kind of interesting because you said, yeah, it's pretty liquid, but you knew, right? It wasn't as liquid as other things. So if you think about this, liquidity is always about the use and control of your money. Liquid money is something you have immediate use and control of. Cash, bonds, and stocks, you can get them and use them right away. Insurance, you can actually access your cash balance in your insurance policies, but it usually takes about 30 days. You have to request that and you have to get that money from the insurance provider. Now, what we want to point out is from a liquidity standpoint, there's only two ways that the house becomes liquid to you. You have to either sell it or you have to borrow against it. Now, selling it, as we know, could take 60 to 240 days. Borrowing is typically going to take you 30 to 60 days. But if you need wealth that's inside the house, you're going to have to either sell it or borrow against it. And that takes real time. So as an asset, it's a really interesting asset. It has a lot of really great properties, but it's not as safe as some people might think. And it's not as liquid as some people might think. And you can think, well, wait a minute, are you selling us about, into not getting a house? No, I'm not doing that at all. House is an incredible investment, but you have to understand the dynamics of it as an investment for you to really talk in an interesting way with your clients. And we used to say, again, we're setting up a series of problems that they need to be aware of and know that if you buy a $300,000 house and you pay cash for it, how do you get that $300,000 out? You have to sell the house or you have to what? Borrow against it. And it was those kinds of setups that helped people realize, wait a minute, maybe I shouldn't pay cash for this house. Maybe I should put $60,000 into the house and borrow $240,000 and take the other $240,000 and put that somewhere that has a better utility. It's safer, it's more liquid, and provides a higher return. So you're understanding these concepts so that you can help people avoid a lot of mistakes that they'll make unknowingly and unnecessarily. So is it safe? Yeah, it's safe, but it's not guaranteed. And it's liquid, but it's not nearly as liquid as most other investments. So you have to be aware of that when you're transferring wealth outside the house into the house when you're buying or, again, thinking about selling a house. And this one's the big one. So jump in anytime you have any questions, but return, I know you've been through this, it's the growth of money over time. All right. So if you buy a house and you think it's going to depreciate, you're better off renting. And I can show you this financially in multiple examples. But if you buy a house and you think, I'm going to buy a house for $300,000 and I think it's going to go down in value, you will lose over time. If you're buying a house, people say, I'm going to buy a house. Great. You believe that house in that area is going to appreciate. And is this something that you want to do more for home, meaning I want to start a family or whatever? Those are really valid reasons to do this. But know that if that house doesn't appreciate, you're not going to create real wealth. So when it comes to the house, there's opportunity cost, there's the principal you put into the house, there's appreciation, and there's EPR, effective percentage rate. These are the four major dynamics that we want you to understand when it comes to this thing called a house. Now I'm going to take you through an example here. This is super geeky, and I'm going to go through it quickly, but you can screenshot these and take a look. If you put $80,000 into a house, you buy a house for $400,000, you borrow $320,000, and that's $80,000. Here's what confuses people. If I buy a house and own it for 30 years and it grows at 4% a year, in 30 years, I have $1.297 million. That sounds really cool. That's a really great investment. But what we want to break down here is that 1.297 million includes the 80,000 original, the 320,000 in principal, and 897,000 in appreciation, right? I'm going to go through this fast because we're going to keep this short, but you need to understand as a dynamic. If I take away appreciation and I buy a house for $400,000 and I put 80,000 into it and I borrow 320, at the end of 30 years, I have a $400,000 house. And that equity in the house came from my original $80,000 down payment and the $320,000 I paid in principal. There is no new wealth creation through homeownership without appreciation. And this is an important concept because over time, when you buy a house, you assume it will appreciate. It will inflate over time. And that's what makes homeownership better off than renting for most people. And one of the biggest reasons why is historically, on an inflation adjusted basis, rent has continued to go up and it will continue to go up in time. And what a mortgage allows you to do is lock in that cost of buying that house in present dollars. Those present dollars are deflated over time, meaning it actually costs you less and less to own a house every single year you own it if you have debt against it, because the debt actually deflates. But rent continues to go up with inflation, increasing your cost of ownership over 30 years. So what you're looking for here is locking in the cost of home ownership now, and simultaneously, right, you're taking advantage of that inflation and that appreciation of that underlying asset. So I'll see if you have any questions there. I'll give you one last example. It's kind of a brain teaser, but it's one that we used to use to really help illustrate this concept.
So mortgage coach community, guys, remember, this is a mastermind. So if you're watching this in Facebook and you have a comment or a question, put that down below. And if you're watching the recording of this in YouTube and you've got questions or comments, put those down below. Keep it going, brother. This is great.
All right, so let's tie all this together around something called opportunity cost. This is an example of, I'm buying a house. I've got $400,000 cash, right? Most people want to buy the house with cash because they live lives of cash flow. So if I have $400,000 and I pay $400,000 cash for this house, what do I get? I get to not pay a mortgage payment. Now, from a wealth standpoint, if I pay $400,000 cash for this house, I save $26.61 a month, which is what I would save in my payment. I'm going to invest that, and I'm going to invest that at 7%. And over that 30 years, it'll grow to 2.58 million. That seems pretty cool to me. Now, I have to have a lot of discipline to do that, right? But I'm doing that because I believe it's the best thing for me, or I wouldn't do it. Now, the alternative here is I could have gotten a $400,000 mortgage. Now, I'm using 100% here just to make the example simple. If I got a $400,000 mortgage and I was paying 7%, I would pay $26.61 a month over 30 years. See, that's psychologically, that cash flow is what I'm trying to avoid. But I'm doing it ultimately because I believe if I don't pay that payment, I'm going to be better off financially. But if I did that, I could then take the $400,000 that I was going to use to pay cash, put it in an investment at 7%. And because of time value of money, it grows to 3.2 million. Now, let me ask you, I've seen people literally chew off the arm of a realtor trying to save $1,000 in closing costs, or they will berate you for what they believe to be an expensive closing setup, right? Now, if you found out that you bought a $400,000 house and you overpaid $657,000 on that house, you just paid $1 million for a $400,000 home, because you're not looking at the total cost of this decision over time. And we teach you how to think about this and how to communicate this to your client in a clear way so that they can make better decisions. And when you start to get this stuff and you can show it to a financial advisor that doesn't understand it until they see it. Once they see it, they're like, oh my gosh, I have clients buying cash, paying cash all the time. I've never had a way to explain this. I'll run the analysis. I'll run the $400,000 that they were going to pay cash, because see, you never meet those people. The advisor meets them because they're pulling down $800,000 to pay cash for a house. You don't meet those clients, right? Now you do, because the advisor's sending them to you saying, show them what you showed me, explain to them why they should put $100,000 or $200,000 into this house and leave the other $600,000 with me. Safety, the money's going to be safer. Liquidity, it's going to be more liquid, and it's going to provide a higher rate of return. So again, these are key financial planning concepts, but what we're doing is we're applying these to the house, because this is the world that you live in. This is where we want you to be an expert and be able to hold court around these topics.
Loving the class, brother. You know, one of the things that we need to do is we need to start having some mortgage coaches where they're taking some of these concepts and then they're like, hey, here's a real world customer. Here's a total cost analysis and how I personalized it for the family at hand. So we're taking it from concepts from being a certified liability advisor to real world presentations and solutions. But I'm loving it. Who do you think we should invite to do that? Because you've had a lot of folks go through your training and become certified. Anybody come to mind?
Yeah, well, you know, recently I know Sosi, who's been on your show quite a bit, has
Sosi Avila.
Yeah, he's finished the course. I'll pull together some recent grads and maybe some older school grads that I know are out there currently working with financial advisory firms doing this kind of stuff. And again, what we talked about today has nothing to do with financial advisors if you don't want it to. This is something you can just do with client engagement, the real estate conversations, et cetera. But where you'll really monetize and get a tremendous return on your investment is when you start developing this whole new channel of referral business from these folks. And again, this course, it's $14.99, but we've got a $500 coupon code right now with MCVIP. So if you go to Bar Smart University, put in MCVIP, Mortgage Coach VIP, MCVIP will knock $500 off of it. You get the whole thing for less than $1,000, and you get the book with that. You get access to recordings. You get all the materials, over 728 slides that we provide you in a workbook that has these concepts detailed out with just step by step how to think about this, how to approach it. It's a big meal. You're not going to eat it in a couple of days. This is something you want to do over the course of several months, if not years, to really start to transition what you do from selling mortgages to managing liabilities.
So first of all, I'm looking for black belt mortgage coaches. So to join Todd and I, you had to have done over 300 total cost analysis, and you need to be a graduate, a certified liability advisor. I'm a big supporter of this training. I think it makes you a more professional loan officer. And I think it makes you a vastly more successful. You're going to get more business from CPAs and financial planners, and you're going to be able to help every family that you serve at a better level. So Todd, thanks for the discount. Remember guys, it's normally $1,500. MCVIP for very important person. MCVIP is the discount code to save $500 in becoming a certified liability advisor. Let's reach out to Sosi and see if he could get us to do a little bit of a slides, the professor teaching a concept, and then real world black belt mortgage coach putting that into action in the market. I'm going to be looking for leaders. So if you fit that criteria, email me, Dave at Mortgage Coach, private message me on social media. If you know someone that meets that, let me know. So Todd, let's see if we have any questions, and then anything else you want to make sure we cover in this lesson.
No, that's good. We'll see if you have any questions, and we can go back through anything if anyone has anything they want to talk about.
Yeah, no, we do not have any questions. If you're watching the recording of this and you get a question or you have a comment, a success story, I'm looking for more mortgage professionals that are getting referrals from CPAs and financial planners and are going beyond loan officer to certified liability advisor. No questions.
Cool.
So want to wrap it up?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Thank you, Todd. And thanks for anyone who gave us your attention. Give this a like and share it with a friend. Take care, y'all.
Thanks.